Well, you have to remember that the Republican Party was actually emailing these talking points out to business owners, because I own a small business and I actually got one of these myself. And it is simply propaganda, because everyone is always debating about who's going to get the tax burden in the next administration. So the GOP wanted to keep the tax breaks George Bush gave them. The Obama supporters want the tax breaks to go to them this time. And what they need to do is unite and say, look, taxes on everybody are too high and we need to back off. That's how you save the economy.
All right, it's the Alex Jones Show. We're going to be taking your calls on the other side. Mike Rivero, WhatReallyHappened.com, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. It's the Alex Jones Show. It's so hard to interrupt Johnny Cash when he's doing his thing. I love the Cash. We're going to be taking your calls in this segment. Myself and Mike Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com. We're going to go to Paul, Rocco, Todd, and others. But there's a new Bin Laden audio tape that's hitting the waves in the media. I read about it this morning, but I couldn't get a hold of whether it actually hit the news media, whether it was an audio or a videotape. And of course, it's an audio tape, and he's unhappy about what's going on in Gaza. And hell, I'm unhappy about what's going on in Gaza. The problem with that is, of course, he's probably taking the Palestinian side, and that automatically demonizes people like myself and Mike that try to point out that the Palestinians aren't really the ones in the wrong here. It's Israel that is encroaching on their space. They're the ones that have the military on their borders constantly and are one of the main causes of the civil unrest over there. But now Bin Laden has a new audio tape. We haven't seen him in years. I think the last time we actually saw him was Blackbeard Bin Laden. And that was just such poor video quality. It's amazing. I'd like to get your take on the new Bin Laden tape prior to us going to calls, Mike. What do you think?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The whole reason for dragging Bin Laden, or Bin Laden Light in this case, out of the closet is to tar anybody who is speaking against Israel in this situation. I mean, the reality is Hamas is the elected government of Palestine. Hamas had basically followed the ceasefire for the last 6 months. Israel now admits Hamas was not firing rockets into Israel at the time when Israel broke the ceasefire on November 4th by attacking Gaza. So Israel is clearly in the wrong here. And again, if you go back to United Nations Resolution 242, Israel is supposed to be out of the occupied territories, not building new settlements and going in and just behaving very rudely. So they can't win on points of international law. They can't win on morality. They can't win on the facts. So they're going to drag out Bin Laden and use him to basically tarnish anybody who is speaking out for peace. The problem with that is that more and more people are well aware that Osama bin Laden appears to have actually died in December of 2001, and every Osama since then appears to be some permutation of Wag the Dog video production. Yeah, they're using the dead guy one more time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And there's a movie out there about Jimmy Carter, and I'm not a huge Jimmy Carter fan, but Jimmy Carter came out with a book not so long ago called Peace, Not Apartheid, and it was all about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. And there's a documentary that just goes through his book tour. And it's something very palatable for the mainstream, for somebody like your uncle or your aunt or your cousin that doesn't really know about this stuff but knows who Jimmy Carter is. And I suggest people get that. All right, let's go to calls. Let's go to Paul in Florida. Paul, what's on your mind? Paul, are you with us? Yes, sir.
I'm so happy to be able to get through today. I'm a first-time caller, but I've been listening since the beginning of the Alex Jones way back. I've listened to Genesis before he was on.
Awesome.
What I want to talk about is the first thing you mentioned with this new guest is conscription.
Mm-hmm.
Can I read you the 13th Amendment? It's one sentence.
All right, go for it.
It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. Does this not make conscription illegal? Is that not involuntary servitude?
I would say it makes it constitutionally illegal. Unfortunately, the people that are running the show right now could give a damn about the Constitution and Bill of Rights. What do you think, Mike?
Well, yeah, the way they get around that is during the military draft, there's a point where they say, all of you who choose to serve the United States step forward, and they construe this to mean that you are volunteering, therefore the 13th Amendment does not apply. But yeah, we have a government that is absolutely ignoring the Constitution, which in my point of thinking delegitimizes them already, along with all the obvious lies. So, and we also need to go back to that little brochure that the FBI has distributed to police departments around America, that anybody who's talking about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights needs to be reported as a potential terror suspect. So obviously our government really isn't paying attention to the Constitution. It's just something, as George Bush says, it's a blank piece of paper.
Absolutely. And, you know, it reminds me of the days that my history teacher used to carry a pocket Constitution around all the time, and he was very proud of this fact, and he would whip it out whenever, you know, there was a question. He'd say, well, actually, this part of the Constitution says that I don't have to do that, and now he's supposedly a potential terrorist? Geez, I just thought he was someone who was trying to help. All right, let's go to Rocco. Rocco, what's on your mind? You there, Rocco? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Good.
Hey, listen, I just want to remind the folks out there, you know, about this new administration coming in and what their future plans are for this country. And, you know, I'm extremely, I guess, hopeful and optimistic that Obama is not going to end up being who, you know, everyone fears he might be. But you never really know until, you know, you guys in office and you give him a try and then you see what he actually does.
Sure.
But, you know, one thing that I'm really concerned about is, you know, our loss of freedom and our loss of rights in this country. And, you know, I mean, how much freedom did we have against the terrorists of 1770? When people were actually, you know, on the streets shooting themselves. And then we forget that in the 1800s, the British actually came and burned Washington, D.C., and still didn't have the Patriot Act. We didn't have all of our rights taken away. We weren't having our phone calls listened in on and everything else. So, you know, I feel like there's a bigger agenda going on.
I also, you're kind of cutting in and out, so we're going to let you go. But I also feel like there's a bigger agenda going on. And in fact, the cover story of Newsweek is Obama's Cheney problem. And Newsweek is pointing to all these executive powers that the Bush administration has passed over the last 8 years. But they're making a case that Obama will not misuse these powers, so there's no reason to get rid of them via executive orders. What's your take on that?
I think that is a very, very dangerous article that came out. It's a very dangerous idea. I think if Obama really wants to bring about change we can believe in, he has to start reversing many of those executive orders, because this whole idea that, yeah, these orders are dangerous to the liberties of the American people, but trust your leaders, they won't abuse them, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. The whole reason for having a Bill of Rights and a Constitution was the recognition by our founding fathers that people in positions of power are just human beings and they're subject to human frailties and weaknesses, and power attracts the very kind of people who ought not to have it. And so, in point of fact, it is dangerous to allow these executive orders to stand. And Obama should rescind them all immediately.
Yeah, I wish that he would rescind them all immediately. What really gets me is the tone of the article, where they're defending torture in many cases, where they're saying, you know, it's basically making every excuse in the book to keep these orders, and because it's a new face, it's not a problem. No, it's a problem because it gives people in the executive branch an obscene amount of power when we were supposed to have checks and balances in this country. That's why there's 3 branches of government, folks. Okay, judicial, executive, and legislative. But the executive has just gotten so out of control with its powers. I mean, the line is not only blurred, it's gone. All right, let's go to Todd in Florida. Todd, what's on your mind?
Hey, Jason, what's going on, bud?
Not much. What's happening?
Nothing. I just sent a picture from a camera phone to Aaron. And
okay.
I have somebody that's very close to me that is in the Postal Service, and they recently had to deliver, they had 3 or 4 of these packages on their route, but I'm pretty sure they're mass distributed. And big, huge package, and it's a survey, and on the front of it, in big, huge letters, it said 2009 National Survey for North American Union and NAFTA Super Trade Highway. Now, and then it's a survey. It's a mass survey going out.
Do you know who's sending it out? What's the outgoing address? Did you get a chance to look at that?
I'm not really sure. I sent the picture to him. He might be able to pick it up off the picture. I wasn't there at the time. They had to take the picture and drop it.
You know what? Send it to my MySpace, too. Can you send me a link to my MySpace? Yeah. It's myspace.com/JasonBermas, because Aaron does get quite overwhelmed. I do try to read all the messages that I get. I may not reply to all of them, but I'd love to see it as well. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much in the open. Even, Dobbs, one of the few people that actually reports what's going on in this country, recently did something about the Securities and Prosperities Partnership, and the Obama administration is opening talks again. It's just like the Trans-Texas Corridor gets reported last week that it's dead. No, they just renamed it. It's under a different project. They're not going to tear the road down that they've built. They're going to continue to build it. So, this is just more expansion, more of an advancement. And these surveys that they send to people, it's to feel them out, to see what they like and what they don't like, what they feel is positive, so that when they do run a commercial, you're going to be more apt to say, you know what, that's a great idea. We do need that. All right, let's go to our next caller. Let's go to Brian in Iowa. Brian, what's on your mind?
Nice talk. Hey, Jason, nice to talk to you. I wanted to thank you and the Loose Change crew for turning me around about 3 years ago.
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm calling from Prison Camp, Iowa State.
Okay.
They recently had protests going on against the Gaza invasion.